This week's Torah reading is called Ki Tisa, which means when you count. One of the subjects of this reading is something in Hebrew called the Kiyor. The Kiyor was like a washing basin where the priests, the Kohanim, who worked in the temple, in times of the desert, it was the tabernacle, the Mishkan, and then later in the first temple, in the second temple, and so on, they had to wash before working their hands and their feet, and then they could start working and so on. Interestingly, this Kiyor was made of copper, but it wasn't just any copper. It was copper collected from women that actually donated their mirrors, which were made out of copper, in order to do whatever had to be done in the temple. But the only thing that needed such an amount of copper was actually the Kiyor. The altar also was made of copper, but that copper was given by other people. The copper used in the Kiyor, in this washing basin, was actually those mirrors. Now, when Moshe Rabbeinu received those mirrors from the women, that actually, what did they use the mirrors for? Our sages tell us that in Egypt, while in exile, men were very, very tired out of a very hard work day, and they used to come back home, and the women used to actually play with them, with the mirrors. I'm nicer than you, I'm nicer than yeah, you're nicer than this or that, this and that that aroused men and so on, and that actually produced from 70 people that came from the land of Canaan into the land of Egypt, 70 Jewish people, so to speak, we came out around 4 million people. That means in 210 years to go from 70 to 4 million, it's quite a lot. Therefore, that's the way women actually aroused men in order to, and so on. Now, in the eyes of Moshe Rabbeinu, these mirrors were actually made for, in Hebrew, Yetzer Hara, evil inclination, intimacy and so on. So Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to receive the mirrors in order to build the Kiyor out of those mirrors. Yeah, these mirrors have a connection with something not so pure, not so elevated and holy and so on. Therefore, he didn't want to receive them. However, God told him, receive the copper, make the Kiyor, the washing basin, out of the copper, and you should know that this copper is precious for me more than anything else donated for the building of the Mishkan of the Tabernacle. The question is why? One of the explanations is, why is this so special for God? One of the explanations is that a person has a good inclination and an evil inclination. And of course, we don't have to listen to the evil inclination because it wants us to be really, really far from the will of God. We have to do the will of God, and we have to keep our mitzvahs, Jews 613, non-Jews 7 and ramifications, and so on. That's good. We have to follow the message of God. However, the evil inclination is over there to fight that and to make us leave the will of God and so on. And we have to fight. But there are many ways we can actually make this fight, this war, so to speak. This war can be in a way that the good inclination overpowers the evil inclination, but the evil inclination is still over there. Another type of war is when the good inclination kills the evil inclination, no more evil inclination. But another way, a very deep and high holy way, is when the good inclination actually explains the evil inclination, how good is God. He gives you food, He takes care of you, gives you health, money, and so on, in a way that the evil inclination learns to love God also. So instead of having one good inclination against one evil inclination, a person ends up having two, so to speak, good inclinations. The one that naturally it has, and the one produced, tanned, so to speak, worked out by understanding that God is actually good, and so on. Now, again, the mirrors, the copper in the mirrors for the Kiyor were actually made of copper used for the evil inclination, and God was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, receive this, don't reject this. Moshe Rabbeinu held, look, this is evil, this is Yetzer Hara, so put it out. And God told him, no, you have to transform the evil inclination into something good, into something useful for the Mishkan, a holy item used in the tabernacle. Another step, so to speak, of deepness. Again, as I mentioned before, the priests, the Kohanim, used to use this kiyor with water to wash their hands and their feet. What does that mean? And how does it connect with everything that I'm saying? The message until now is you don't have to destroy yourself. You don't have to destroy your past when actually getting closer to God. You have to transform it. Use it in a positive way. But there's another message. In order for this to actually work, you have to wash your hands and your feet. What does that mean? With water. What does that mean? The idea is that a person gets in contact with the world and a person learns from the world. Of course, if a person has a past against the will of God and so on, of course you need to do tshuva, you have to repent and you have to get closer to God and so on. But you have to wash yourself from that which came into contact with the world. And usually the hands and the feet is that represents that which actually is more in contact with the world. Which doesn't mean that you have to cut your hands and cut your feet. Yeah, that's it, I'm holy. No. It means wash it. Wash it with what? Your contact with the world. That which you actually absorb from society, which not every time is good, that you have to wash with the waters of Torah. Torah is compared to water, just as water comes from a high place to a low place. Torah also comes from a high place to a low place. So you have to know that before starting your service to God, this is actually what the priests used to do. Before starting their service in the temple, they used to wash hands and feet. Before you, each one of us, which is that quote-unquote priest that wants to serve God in the temple can be their learning place, your house, your family. You can understand these in many, many other different ways. But before you start your service, when you come from the outside and try to apply in your life, in your temple, quote unquote, again, your family, your body, your friends, whatever that means. Before starting your service, you have to wash your hands. You have to make sure that the influences you get from the outside, from the society, from your past, are washed out in the waters of the Torah in order to make sure that your service is going to be according to the will of God. And of course, this has a strong message for Jews, of course, but also, and how much more so for non-Jews. Why? Because usually non-Jews come from a very, quote-unquote, non-Jewish world with non-Jewish ideas, very, very different from the Torah ideas. So in order to start your service, the first thing you have to do is wash your hands, wash your feet. That which became in contact with the outside, so to speak, world, that you have to wash it, and you have to know, don't destroy your past. You have to use your past in a positive way, transform it into holiness, into Kedusha, just as those mirrors used by the women for evil inclination, so to speak, that was transformed and used as the first thing every single person used to, every single Kohen, priest, used to use in the temple. The first thing was the Kiyor. That's the preparation for actually serving God.